All right, what's up, guys? Mr. YouTube Gamer here with another interview. My guest right now is none other than FritangaPlays. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hola, everybody. I'm Fritanga. You might have heard of me if you know of Bulletberry. Um, and you might know me from some videos. Uh, you know, console versus PC related videos, anyway. And that's about it, really.
All right,
um,
so you said you had some questions for me, right?
I did, NewTube. I did. I mean, you are quite a celebrity. You know. um, I'm more curious to know what it is that got you to want to change the way you do things from before, from the console king videos, and now you want to do, from what I can tell, videos that are for the community.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the reason why I decided to make that shift is because I just got tired of the whole console king thing. I think it was getting stale. I think we could all agree on that. That it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
there's not much more I could have done with that whole thing, and I just felt like I was doing. I didn't realize it, but I kind of realized that I was kind of doing some damage to the community, whether or not I was intending to or not. And I just thought that it was time to move on. I thought people deserved at this point, because I'd been on here for a while, that people deserve to uh, know the real me, I guess.
Right. Well, I gotta say, you did look like you were having a lot of fun with it when you were
I
doing it.
was, of course, I was. That's why I was doing it for so long.
Mm,
But I just thought after a while, you can only do so much with a character, before it runs its course. I think that goes with anything,
right.
not just with
Um,
YouTube.
but before it converted into being a character, well, that's just the thing I actually want to know. Was it always a character, or did you reach a point where you were just like, you told yourself, ah, fuck it, I'm gonna roll with this?
Well, yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. I think it would be easy to say, it would be good PR to be like, oh yeah, like it was always a joke, and I always hated, like I never hated PC, and PC was always great to me. Like obviously,
Mm-hmm.
like it started from, I think I already mentioned this in previous videos, but it actually started from legitimate, I guess you could say, resentment towards the whole PC Master Race thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I just decided, you know
Okay.
what, like that video I made that first got the attention of people, like the first one that Rags made on me.
Yeah.
That one,
Yeah.
that one was that one was actually like kind of serious, sort of, but as time
Okay.
went by, I just became more and more over the
Mhm.
top. If you asked me if that video would take off like it did, I wouldn't expect it to. I just decided to make it for the hell of it. But yeah, no, I didn't make these videos expecting to get attention and getting publicity or any of that. It just happened. But after a while, now, as soon as I started getting attention, I'm like, oh, I could like take advantage of this and turn it into a
Hmm.
whole thing.
Yeah. See, I was I was a little curious about that because I reached a point where I started noticing that it was a character.
With the
And
plastic microphone and all that shit.
yeah, I gotta say it's kind of genius, the plastic microphone. I found it entertaining. Um, but I always made an oath not to make a debunking video on you because by that time I knew you were just playing a character. And when someone's just playing a character and you make a video on them, it kind of it makes you look, dumb for doing it. Um, because it comes off as insincere if you can't see that someone is actually just trolling or playing a character and you go out of your way to do a video on them. Like I said, I think that makes you look foolish. And not to mention, I think you were one of the most overdone channels that people made a video on, aside from JTech, who is just on another level.
Yeah, and
and I see that.
that's another thing I mentioned. I made a video on JTech recently, actually, and
Hmm.
people always judged me like as a person and said that I was a terrible
Right.
person for the
Yeah.
videos I made, and I tried to make the distinguishment between myself and him, because as I'm sure you're aware, JTech has gone after channels, has taken down videos, has done all this
Yeah.
shit. I had never done a
I
single
had
one of
a
those.
I had a live debate with him.
I know.
That
I saw
was
part of it. I obviously didn't see the whole thing because that would
no.
be.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost killed me.
I mean, it's good
um.
interrogation material for terrorists, I could say.
I'll tell you something. I went in there with the mentality that there would be a debate, but I guess he went in there with the mentality that I don't know. I don't know what goes on through that guy's mind.
Me
I'm still
neither. I was
fascinated by
trying
it.
to interview him actually to
I saw.
try
I noticed that.
so
Yeah,
people can
JTech
get
TV interview.
to give him a fair shake, but
Yeah.
he backed out and like no, at first he wanted to do it. He was on board. He unblocked me on Twitter. He seemed like he was
Mm-hmm.
on board with it. And then he was like, "No, I'm not sorry. I'm not here to make friends," or whatever the hell it was that he said. And then
Yeah.
he blocked me again. He reblocked me.
Yeah. He blocks me and then unblocks me to shit post and then reblocks me. He's just, I'll tell you one thing, NoobTube. All right. In my time this past year doing these console peasant related videos, you're the only one that has come out and has, for the most part, admitted to your mistakes and is trying to change, while all these other channels instead, they just double down on what they've said and they stick to it and they just get even worse. I
I
think.
Yeah, I just feel like that's not sustainable. Like, how long can you do that before it just gets tiring? Like, people are already getting tired of JTech. Like, he's not getting
Yes.
nearly as much coverage as he did, like, let's say a year or two ago. He's just one of those like
Hmm.
people that, it's just it runs its course, like I've said.
He it got stale with Jay real fast for me,
Yeah,
especially after I had the chance to talk to him. And I honest to God don't believe he's a troll.
me neither.
Because
Because he goes
I
after
thought he
people's
was.
channels. He blocks everybody who
Yeah,
disagrees with him. That's a whole different thing than just I don't think he's a troll. No way.
exactly. That's I'm on the same
I
boat with
think
you
that's
on
how you
that.
can tell if someone's a
Um,
troll. If they're like
yeah,
blatant, if they're like going after people directly. I think that's how you know they're actually serious.
right. Well, there are a few criticisms Rags made of you that I wasn't too fond of myself. I'll admit. I wasn't exactly fond of him, I guess, for the most part, making fun of you for your hair or your, facial features or any of that kind of thing. I've always believed that when it comes to making these videos against console peasants or console fanboys, that you go after the things they say, not their appearances. And Rags has, criticized people for their weight and their looks. And
Meanwhile, he hides it behind an avatar.
well, I mean, I hide behind an avatar as well. I
But
wouldn't
you
say
don't.
hide. It's just
But you don't go after people's appearances, though. That's the difference.
no, I don't, because I feel
I just
that
think it's
it accomplishes
hypocritical.
nothing.
Yeah, I think it's
If,
hypocritical to do it though if you yourself don't show your own face, if that makes sense.
well, Rags has shown his face. He has
Well,
plenty of times.
recently he's taken down those videos with his face in it though,
Yeah, I think it's more of
which is
for
fine.
me. Yeah, for me, I don't want to show my face because I want to have my own privacy. Because even at 4K subs, which I just reached last night, even at
Congrats.
4K subs, just logging onto my computer, just going onto Discord or logging into my Steam, I just get flooded with messages, and I couldn't imagine how how time consuming that would be if people really knew who I was and they would try and message me on Facebook or anything like that. So for those reasons, I'd like to remain faceless for the most part. And that's why. But like I said, I don't ever go after people for their appearances, for their weight. I think it takes a special kind of low to go there. And I know you don't like Rags, and I don't know if do you still really not like him?
As
I
of
don't
now,
think.
I don't really. I'm kind of neutral towards him. I can't say that I like him, but I can't say
Mhm.
that I dislike him either. I'm fine with him. I have really no problem with him anymore. Like I said, if I'm trying to move on, it would be stupid to hold grudges from stuff that happened before.
Right.
So I'm not
Also,
gonna
he
hold
would
grudges
use. Yeah.
against him. But
Yeah, that would be used against you if you were to, you know, get mad about things like that. It would be used against you. Um, but
I
like,
will say though that I do think that he kind of like went too far. I know that I might have went too far as well, but I just think
mm,
people need to acknowledge that there's a certain limit that you should go to. Like you said
right,
before, like attacking
right.
people personally doesn't really accomplish anything.
Like the criticisms he made of your hair and your face. I think I really kind of held Rags um to a standard, and that standard was that he always remained objective, he always remained fair in his criticisms, and he always stayed on the topic, but he strayed off into criticizing people's for their appearances and things like that. And I really just I these people probably deal with some bullying, have dealt with some bullying in their life at one point for their weight. Or, I mean, I don't know if you've ever dealt with bullying, but like, your hair, and it's kind of like reopening a wound.
Well,
Um,
yeah, no, I mean I've dealt with it many, many, many years ago, like in middle school, but who
mhm.
hasn't at that time? Like everyone I
Yeah.
think had a hard time in when they were like growing up, like preteen, that kind of time. But
Hmm.
like I don't know, like I never gotten bullied for anything that Rags has gone after me for because now I'm like practically an adult and people don't really do that
Right.
anymore, like in real life.
I, I
So
watched you grow up on YouTube, NoobTube. I was looking back at some of your videos, I'm like, wow, you were so young.
I've been doing this since 2009, I believe.
I just I really just started taking it serious I think late last year or more.
Mm.
I mean, I've had my YouTube channel since 2015, but some people don't know this, but the reason my channel name is FritangaPlays is because I originally was going to be a Let's Player. And
Right.
I had some cringy Let's Plays.
Yeah,
Um,
I tried to enter the Let's Play thing, but I just feel like too many people do
it's
it.
flooded.
Yeah.
It's flooded.
There's really nothing that like
Yeah.
I personally feel that I can do that can make it unique. So that's why
Mhm.
I personally haven't done besides the fact that it's a pain in the ass to just record every time you fucking play a game.
I
Like
think I mean, in comparison to the kind of videos I do, Let's Plays are a piece of cake. Um, the what keeps me from doing Let's Plays though is how saturated the market for them is. And
absolutely. Yeah.
you got these people at the top, and if you just try and do a Let's Play, nobody's gonna want it. And not to mention, I personally didn't find Let's Plays fun to do.
Me neither. I
Um,
never really had fun
I've
doing
always
it.
wanted to express. I've always wanted to express my opinions, my personality, all those kinds of things. But I didn't know how to do it, and I certainly didn't want to show my face on camera because I'm not a very good actor, and I'm not good at expressing myself on camera.
Mhm.
So I thought, one day I was just sitting down and I was, doodling because I draw every now and then. I was drawing some cartoons, and I kind of drew this one character, and I just thought about it for a minute when I looked at it, and then I walked over to my friend's house because he doesn't live too far from here, and I showed him. I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Because he's an even better artist than I am, and he said, "Hey, that's pretty good. Maybe if you refine this, if you change that up." So then I went back home and I did it, and then after it was done, I scanned the picture on my printer,
Mhm.
and then I opened it up in GIMP and I started tracing the lines and coloring it in, and then that's where I came up with the idea that this is the cartoon character that I will be using um, to express or to represent me, even if he doesn't look anything like me. I just like the way this cartoon character looks.
Where'd you get
Um,
just out of curiosity, where'd you get the popsicle stick thing from?
okay, so back in elementary school, they used to do a puppet show, and they would have these puppets attached to popsicle sticks, and they would peek them over a piece of cardboard, but you couldn't see the person's hand.
Mhm.
And I was always just fascinated by how simple yet effective that puppet technique was. And I was like, huh, I don't see anybody doing that on YouTube. I'll try it.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I think it works
I
for you.
enjoy
Yeah.
it for the most part. It's a pain in the ass to edit, but I think it's better to have a unique look than to not have one at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I could honestly just do gameplay in the background and voiceovers, but I kind of want to go above and beyond of doing that. It's just the way I've been at everything I do growing up. I've always wanted to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
So when we would sit down and our teachers would tell us to start practicing our shading on basic objects, I would draw a full figure and then I would shade it. Those kinds of things. So that's how I wanted to do YouTube. I didn't want to just be that one person when you click on their video, you're like, okay, these are a dime a dozen. I wanted them to click on my video and be like, okay, this guy really, really puts effort into the editing and it really looks professional. That's about it, really.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just me personally, I'm not a very artistic person, so that whole setup wouldn't really work for me. And I don't know, I just never really had any interest in having an avatar or anything like that.
Well, not to mention you have a potato, right, to run your computer.
Yeah, exactly. It would take much longer. It already takes a long time for videos to be uploaded. So it would just be even more of a pain in the ass to have this whole avatar thing.
Yeah, it is the pain in the ass, but to me, it's worth it so that I'm a recognizable figure within the community of, I guess, PC gamers. Which I had another question of mine. From what I heard before we did this, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, that you thought I was worse than Rags.
Oh yeah.
For a while, you thought that, do you still think that, or I mean, I don't mind if that's the.
I mean, it's just that particular day, I was like in a bad fucking mood, right? And then I just I forget what it was that you said, but there was like a comment that you wrote on one of my videos, and I was just like pissed off.
Yeah.
And I just I was just I don't know, my bad.
Beforehand, had you ever seen any of my videos?
No, actually, I didn't know who you actually were until you made that comment on my video a few weeks ago. Yeah, I didn't even know who you were.
Interesting.
I had a conversation, text chat with Bullet Barry on Discord, and he was mentioning you. I'm like, who? So I actually looked you up, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
You know.
He says, he recommended you to me. I mean,
but apparently you knew who I was for a while.
Oh yeah, I mean,
because I saw like a video.
When running these PC gaming circles, you know who the people are. That's mainly due to Rags, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a bad thing.
I was like one of the top trends a few years ago when this whole thing started happening with PC gaming. I was one of the top trends on the PC Master Race Reddit. So yeah,
it's pretty slow and dying for the most part. These console peasant debunking videos, mainly because I think a lot of people are starting to realize that it's better to be objective on the internet than to state opinions based off of misinformation. Because I mean, when I go onto YouTube to find a video to do, on people who talk about the PC in a negative way, they seem to start getting smarter about how they do so, and they're starting to be a little more objective, and a lot of them are starting to argue on preference instead. And I think that's a better route for them to take. This is, instead of telling people PC gaming isn't that great and I don't think so because of this and this, I think it's better if people just say I prefer console gaming because of this. And that's an argument that I think console gamers should be using, is preference, because when it comes to preference, I can't argue preference. If people honestly prefer the PlayStation menu over a desktop interface, I can't argue that. It's preference. And
But if they try to use like some kind of anecdotal data, it never works out for them, pretty much, because
yeah,
there's so many game, like when they talk about exclusives, for example, right? You go on Steam and you can't really say that there are more exclusives on the consoles than the PC. And whenever people on the PC side say, "Oh, but there actually are more exclusives on the PC," "Oh, but those games are shit," like I hear that argument a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a very closed-minded argument, because I recognize that the consoles have a lot of really good exclusives.
They also have
There's
some
really
bad
good
exclusives
games on both platforms. I'll never say that there isn't good games on the console, because there are a lot of good games. There's games that have my attention, like Bloodborne.
Yeah,
no,
no,
that's a game
I
really
always
want to
I always
play.
love Sony exclusives. Like I thought
Yeah,
that their exclusives were very like well made for the most part, except for maybe like the Order
yeah,
1886 or something like that.
but for someone like me though, sorry, I drank my coffee.
No
I
problem.
prefer to not have exclusives be a thing. Mainly because I kind of feel like if everybody is able to play a game, a really good game, for instance, like Bloodborne, only PlayStation gamers can play that right now. I don't know if it's on PSN now, but for now, only PlayStation gamers can play that.
Right.
And I feel that, you know, you have all these PlayStation gamers come to you and they tell you, oh, you know, Bloodborne's an amazing game. And you have to kind of tell them, oh, you know, I wouldn't know. I don't have the chance to play it. And instead of kind of, you know, instead of saying things like, oh, gee, I wish you could play that, I wish you had access to that game, instead they tell you things like, oh, well, you should just get a PS4. And not a lot of people have the money to fork out for a new platform. I think it's just a very dismissive thing to tell people.
Yeah, I think
Just like there's a lot of games on the PC, like Quake Champions, that I wish was on console, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be a great game. And not a lot of people on console can, not anyone on console can play that, and not a lot of console gamers can cough up the money to build a PC to play that game.
so.
It just doesn't.
I
It's
made the
not beneficial
video.
to the consumers. And in fact, I don't even know what Quake being exclusive to PC is beneficial to Bethesda for, but you know, what would I know?
Yeah. No, but I actually, since you were talking about Quake Champions, I actually made a video about Quake Champions specifically, about it being exclusive to the PC. And I was kind of talking about the whole exclusive games argument and why there should or shouldn't be exclusive games. And me personally, I feel that third-party exclusives are really bad, and I don't think there's any point in defending them. Like, remember, like, I think it was the first Titanfall game. It wasn't even exclusive. It was a console exclusive. I think that's fucking stupid.
It was.
And there's just a whole bunch of instances of third-party exclusive games that just make no sense. Like, they shouldn't be a thing. But I think there's a difference between those kind of games and first-party games where, like, you know, Sony pays for part of the development for these games, and it makes sense for it to be exclusive, I think.
Right. I'm looking through the comments. I'm looking through the comments on your video of why Quake Champions should come to consoles, and I'm very, very curious to see how my PC brethren are going to react to that, because, you know, let me see what they say, because, let's see. And this motherfucker calls us beggars. Well, that's not a very productive comment. And then console players talk about PC gamers begging for games. See, this is where I get disappointed with the PC times is we argue that there should be games from consoles that are on the PC because we don't like the idea of exclusives. And likewise with the PC, we want there to be PC games on the consoles if it's possible to run them. And then when a console gamer such as makes this video, wanting Quake Champions to be on consoles, and seeing how the PC gamers that argue against exclusivity are now kind of bashing you about that. I just...
Hold on a second.
It disappoints me. I don't like to see the PC gaming community argue like peasants, because that's what they're doing right here. I mean...
Give me a second.
Hold on. I'm reading these comments. Did you read your comments on that video?
Yeah, I actually did. I was wondering why there were like so many like dislikes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, your like to dislike ratio has been getting much better on YouTube.
Yeah, but it was like half dislikes, half likes.
Well, recently you only have 5 dislikes on your latest video.
Yeah, it has been getting better, but that specific video, I think people thought I was going back to the whole console peasant thing, because I was talking about Quake Champions, why it should be on consoles. I think people took it the wrong way. I don't know.
Right. So, I wanted to ask another question. An interesting question is, when you were making these consoles is better than PC video, and then you finally got a video done on you by Rags. What was your reaction when that video suddenly started getting views, and then it was getting flooded with negative comments and dislikes? And did you know who Rags was at that time, or not yet?
I knew who Rags was. I first knew about him when he made that video on me, and back then it was almost like 2 years ago. We're talking about now. It's been that long now.
So he was really small.
He had
was
like
really small at the time,
I think,
right?
from what I can remember, he had like 100 subscribers maybe. And all of a sudden, like his channel started shooting up, and I was kind of like taken back a little by it, because he suddenly went from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000. It was just crazy, and I suddenly got flooded by all this negative attention, which I wasn't surprised that I was getting negative attention at all. Like, I expected that to happen, but I just didn't expect, like, his channel specifically to just grow like that, if that makes sense.
Well, the first Rags video I watched was on Next Gen 720, when he was talking about how the Xbox Scorpio was going to destroy all high-end PCs or something like that. And then the second video I ever watched him do was one on you.
Right.
Was one on you. And at the time that he did that video, he was bigger by then. But what I'm asking is, so 2 years ago is when he first did a video on you, right? Or was it?
Yeah, no, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, 2015.
2 years ago. Okay. And he was a small YouTuber at the time, right?
Very small, yeah.
Smaller.
Really
Very
small.
He was like in the 100 subs,
yeah,
200 subs?
Yeah, that small.
Oh. And was he bigger than you, or are you guys around the same size?
No, back then I had like 1,000 subscribers.
And he had a few hundred, right?
He had like 100.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry, there was like a connection problem.
So you had 1,000 subs, and he had like a few hundred at that time?
Yes. He had 100 exactly, I think. Like 110, something like that. Like a very low number.
Oh, okay. All right. Huh. Interesting. And how did you react to that video? Were you angered by it? Did it just surprise you?
I wouldn't say that I was angry about it. I didn't really think much of it at first, but as soon as his channel started taking off, and obviously that caused more attention to be, to come towards my way, because he made a number of videos on me, actually. I was just like, whoa, because all of a sudden, like, it had like, his channel growing actually made my channel grow, if that makes sense, because he kept making videos on me, and people.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah. His growth was beneficial to you, but
yeah, that's why I'm not like I don't feel like resentment towards him for his channel growing, because it's done nothing but help mine in a way. So
well, it seems
that's good.
It seems Barry's trying to help you out as well.
Oh yeah, speaking of Barry, when
Barry's a very nice guy.
I first talked to him less than a year ago.
Of of the so-called Four Horsemen, which I find cringy, by the way. The Four Horsemen of the PC gaming.
Yeah.
You know what that is, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I personally find it to be kind of cringy, that that thing that they built, which I don't actually want to ever be a part of.
I mean, I'm cool with
But
like two of them, so
yeah,
I don't have a problem with
but
that.
of the Fringy, right? You've talked to Fringy before.
Yeah, I've talked to Fringy, but the main two, like the ones that I keep regular contact with and I'm pretty friendly with, are Bullet Barry, of course, and actually Top Hats and Champagne.
Really?
Yeah.
No, really, Top Hats, huh?
Mm-hmm. He actually offered me to do like a, you know, how he does the guest videos.
Mm-hmm.
He offered me to make one for him on his channel, so yeah, we're cool.
Really? He's never offered me anything. He doesn't like me, probably.
No, I think he has a policy where, like, if anyone asks, he pretty much allows it.
Wait, if people ask for a guest video, he'll allow it?
Yeah, that's what he said. I didn't even ask, though. He offered me, but I think if you ask, he should be okay with it.
Interesting. How did that conversation go? That's interesting.
Yeah, no, well, it was actually a public exchange on Twitter. It wasn't like a private conversation, but I guess he noticed that I was changing my channel direction, and I guess he decided, you know, because if I continue doing the Console King thing, obviously it make no sense for me to make a video on his channel. But I guess now that I've taken a new direction, and I guess to him, I guess a former console peasant making a video would, I guess, create some intrigue for his channel. I'm not sure, but he seemed interested.
I mean, I would go for it if I were you on YouTube. I would, honestly.
I already made one. He just needs to upload it.
Really? Now that is interesting. That is interesting.
Yeah. It's just
no,
I'm actually really cool with him. I went from making a video called the top 10 worst PC fanboys and him being #1 on the list to us being pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm surprised you put him as #1. Wow.
Yeah, no, Rags was #2. I remember. I don't remember the full list, but I believe Rags was in it, Top Hats was in it, Fringy was in it. It was just obviously for shits and giggles, but
right. No, those were some entertaining times, NoobTube. I gotta say, you did give us a lot of hours of entertainment.
I think the most entertaining part of that whole run was when I was in a call with Rags.
Boy, was that a little awkward.
That was crazy. And then Bullet Barry jumped in later. Oh my god, that was nuts. I was up till 4 in the morning.
Well, was that 4 in the morning your time?
Yeah, it was one because they do podcasts late for whatever reason. Those Game Talk people.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't gonna turn down that opportunity to be in a call with him, so I decided to take it.
I'll tell you, that podcast was legendary. Oh,
it was the most viewed.
It was great.
Episode of that podcast. Yeah.
It's just like, this dog needs to be put down. It was great. It was good. I really I go back and listen to it every now and then.
Me too, actually.
just because it was a very interesting time. I think things were starting to die down. You as I think that was like your final run as the Console King was around that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, what happened is that people were kind of getting tired of my PC gaming videos, and that's actually what made me become the Console King.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that got a lot of attention. That's really, like, the Console King wasn't the beginning of my, I guess you could say, trolling. Like, it's not like every video before the Console King was serious, but the Console King was made just to create more, I guess, interest.
Yeah, the microphone. I remember my PSN account is expired.
Like, come on, people took that. People could take that video seriously. Like, come on, how can you take that seriously?
I mean, I didn't take it serious. Or the
some people did.
The why Skyrim is better than the Witcher 3 video.
Oh yeah.
You made that just to troll people, didn't you?
Yeah, because there's always debate about Witcher versus Skyrim because they're both medieval settings.
Well, personally, I didn't find The Witcher 3 to be my cup of tea. I thought the narrative for that game was fantastic, but gameplay-wise, that game was just mediocre at best. I feel
well,
like
Skyrim's
there was
gameplay was like the sword gameplay was kind of shit in Skyrim.
oh yeah, Skyrim's swordplay was no better, but what Skyrim did for me that other open world games don't do quite often is actually make the open world the game.
Yeah.
It's when I play The Witcher 3, the open world is there as a setting, but it doesn't feel like the open world is necessary for The Witcher 3. It's just there. You run in it and you look at it. Whereas in games like Skyrim, you collect parts, you pick up items, you collect parts that are in this world. You can affect the world for the most part.
Yeah.
Well, but as time went by, Bethesda games don't do that as much as I wish they would. Sorry if I'm stuttering up a little bit. I'm pretty tired.
No problem. The thing I don't like about those type of games, though, the whole open world RPG, those games where you have, open world and you could do what you want, basically, is that the main quest line is not as fulfilling as the side missions usually. Like in Skyrim, I didn't really care much about defeating Alduin and all that bullshit. I cared more about being an assassin for the Dark Brotherhood.
Yeah, the same thing for me. The same thing for me with the quest line. Hold on. Sorry, I'm just replying to some Discord messages. Okay. For me, the problem with The Witcher 3 and Skyrim and other open world games is how time consuming they are. And when people tell you, oh, I have hours in this game or I have hours in that game, I always question how many of those hours were spent traversing the open world to get to a quest.
Yeah.
Because that is what I've noticed. Because I played Fallout 4. I did a second run with Fallout 4 with fast travel. I did with fast travel.
Yeah.
And I beat the game in 10 hours.
I beat Fallout 3 in like
on fast travel. I beat the game in 10 hours.
I beat 3 in like 7 hours. Without any side quests.
So I question, is it the traversing of these open worlds that people just dump hundreds of hours into, or is it the actual content of the game, the actual quests? Because it feels like a lot of open world games.
Well, I know with Fallout 4, people
offer you all of these quests. They offer you all of these quests, and The Witcher 3 has great quests. Don't get me wrong, but I spent a lot of time in The Witcher 3 just riding Roach in this open world, getting to my next location, and in between travels, it felt there was nothing of substance.
Yeah, like in Skyrim,
it felt dull.
Yeah, like in Skyrim, riding around, you usually ran into like random NPCs, typically, like in Bethesda games. But the thing I feel about these
NPCs
games
would approach you and they would give you miscellaneous quests and they would distract you from the main quest, which I think is actually bad game design personally, but at least it was something of substance in between travels, which most open world games don't have. Breath of the Wild, I played that on an emulator, and I think there's a lot to be learned about how to design open world games from Breath of the Wild, because the Breath of the Wild truly does take the open world and make it the game, with chopping down trees and building items from them, hunting and scavenging for food, and then cooking recipes, fighting enemies that are located at bases, and then collecting loot. But the way Breath of the Wild does it is it does it in a way that the narrative never takes away from the gameplay. And that's a huge problem I have with The Witcher 3 is that the gameplay was often at best just okay, and the story seemed to kind of cover up for it. And as a gamer, me personally, I've always felt gameplay was more important than story. But that is all, obviously, that's just an opinion I have. A lot of people would say that they're both just as important. I don't know.
I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on story, especially considering the success of, like, let's say Telltale.
Mm.
story-focused games that really don't have any gameplay at all. And I kind of find that interesting because there are games where like your choices actually matter much more than Telltale games, at least, and it has much more gameplay. Like, let's say
Yeah.
Mass Effect, for example.
Oh, Mass Effect, great, great game. I really loved the first Mass Effect a lot. Um, but Mass Effect, the first Mass Effect, don't get me wrong, the first Mass Effect's gameplay was terrible. It was not good. It was not good. I think what I liked about Mass Effect the most was just the lore and seeing how the world was connected and all these quests and all the options and the dialogue. I think that was its gameplay, really, when I think about it. I think if a game if a game is going to be story based, have the story play out as the gameplay. For instance, I play The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. I don't know if you've had the chance to play that.
Never played it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. So in The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, you're trying to uncover what had happened in this little town. And the story is told to you through gameplay. For instance, you find a dead corpse, and then you can start to see you can see the events that happened, and you're supposed to piece them together, and you piece the puzzle together, and it tells you the story that way. I think that's absolutely genius.
That's how it
And
used to be.
yeah, there's not enough games that do that. I think Dark Souls still does that. Dark Souls still allows you to piece the story together without interrupting the flow of the gameplay, and I think it's something a lot of video games are missing. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the main problems I had with The Witcher 3 was that, hey, look, this story's great, but the minute you have me sit here to watch a cutscene without any input from me personally, I just don't find that to be very well. I don't find that to be good game design, honestly.
My main
But that's
problem
just
with
me.
those kind of games is, like I mentioned, that I typically find the side quests more fulfilling than the main storyline. Like
Mm-hmm.
I also feel that these type of games, they're too like it kind of makes no sense the way that they're telling the story to actually go out and do side quests. Like it kind of
Mm-hmm.
interferes with the feel of the game and the main storyline. Like for instance, in Fallout 4, right? The main story is that you're looking for your son. It makes no sense to just be running around and doing other shit for like
Mm.
3 months in game.
Right. Um, I think so much emphasis on story is how can I put it? I think what developers are trying to do, and I admire this, is they're trying to get video games to be on the level of movies,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense that we look at movies as art in the media, but the media refuses to look at video games in the same vein as movies.
Yeah.
And because of that, they try to form narratives with a lot of complexity to them, and they put so much effort into the story that sometimes they forget that the gameplay is just as important. And that's
Absolutely.
why you get a lot of games like I personally didn't like it was like Heavy Rain or
Mm.
Beyond Two Souls. Yeah, games like that, they don't. Gosh, I stutter over my words because I start to actually think about this stuff when I start talking about it, because I've never felt like video games will ever be able to compete with movies for several reasons. A movie doesn't require your input. And because it doesn't require your input, you can sit there and just focus all of your attention on the story, because that's how movies are made. They don't require input from you. Video games, on the other hand, are designed to have input from the player. And when that is something that you take away from a game to try and get it on the level of a movie, I think you degrade the art and you defeat the purpose of the game. I've always looked at it that way, but lately I've been thinking about it even more because I wanted to do a video on this topic. Um, because, like I said, video games they'll never be able to compete with movies because movies don't require your input. Movies just require your attention.
They
That's
don't,
about
but
it.
they don't need to compete with movies because the video game industry is just it's crazy. The amount of money that they make. I actually think that it's a bigger industry than the movie industry.
Um, bigger than the movie. I don't know if it's bigger than the movie industry, budget like in terms of economics. I don't know which one's bigger, but I've always felt like in terms of story and narrative, video games aren't on the level of movies, and I don't think they ever will be. Mainly because, like I said, movies are made for you to sit and just watch. A video game is made for you to play, to control. Video games are art that you can jump into the world and you can explore it. For instance, sometimes when I'm walking through the mall, I see paintings and I think to myself, okay, this is a painting. This is the type of art a painting is. But a video game is you being able to be inside that painting and play around in that world that you see in the painting. That's the difference between video games and other forms of art. I think video games are a bunch of different arts put together to create a whole new art. And I don't think that they should I don't think they should rail away from that. I think they should stay where they're at and try and evolve more, because I think most of the games I've played last year in 2015 were cutscene heavy. All of them. They were very cutscene heavy. And I don't feel like I got anything out of watching those cutscenes. I mean, I granted, a lot of people did. There's a lot of people out there that when they play games, story's the one thing that they're interested in, and more power to them. But for me, I don't think gameplay should be sacrificed to try and make a game more movie-like.
Yeah, I feel you. I think the difference between the game and the movie industry is kind of like part of the reason why video game-inspired movies or movie-inspired video games typically don't do well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just some things just like don't translate well into film or into a video game. They're just different mediums. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a topic that is completely subjective. So I can't tell people that this is not the way to make games, because, like I said, it's completely subjective. But for me, I don't like the idea of developers pushing away from gameplay to prioritize story, because it kind of just makes the gameplay bleh.
Well, I'm okay with those kind of games. It's just the price of those games that I really have a problem with. Like, I don't think they're worth $60 by any means. The story-driven games. Like, I know Telltale games are cheap, but like when Heavy Rain first came out, for instance, and when Beyond Two Souls first came out, they were full-price games. But I played them on sale, so I didn't have a problem with them. Like, I got them for like maybe $20 each, which isn't really a big deal. That's how much they charge for like movies individually now. So
yeah,
it's okay. I mean, I liked Heavy Rain for what it was.
As I think I appreciate that it was trying to tell a story in the way a movie would. But like I said, I don't think it benefits video games to do it in that way, because the less input from the player, the less of a game it becomes to me.
Yeah.
There are moments where Heavy Rain required you to, move the analog stick or press this button or do this motion. But really, it was just giving you the illusion of input. It was almost like trying to wake you up, like, hey, wake up, remember, this is a video game. And when a game has to remind you it's a video game, I don't know.
Well, you know that the people who create, like, Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, they don't even call their games games. They call it interactive dramas. So I don't even know if they're really saying that this is a game. But at the same time, I kind of feel like, personally, like, offended that they think that it's worth $60 when there are games that have much more gameplay and are much more.
I mean, Telltale. I think Telltale games are fairly priced.
Me too, absolutely.
For the most part, I think that Telltale games understand that they don't have a lot of content to offer to the player, and because of that, they're charged at a more reasonable price.
No, I like Telltale.
Yeah,
I just don't like how typically the choices that you make don't really have much effect on the story, which I kind of don't feel that it's too acceptable, because really you have no gameplay. It's just a story, and it just gives you the illusion of choice. It doesn't really offer. Yeah.
Yeah, the cutscenes will play out the same. I noticed this when playing Borderlands, Tales from the Borderlands on my phone, is no matter what choice I picked, the scenario will still play out the same, and the difference would be done at the end instead of on spot. Like for instance, I could treat the guy who walks around with me, I could treat him like crap and nothing would happen in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. There are only like few differences, like in the Game of Thrones series, for example. That actually got me into the TV show. Actually, I didn't even know.
Really?
I never seen an episode of Game of Thrones until I played the game, and
Is it good?
Yeah, it's really good. I enjoyed the story that they told, but the problem I had is that your choices didn't really have much of effect during the game until like episode 5, because it was it's a 6 episode series. Usually it's 5 episodes. Telltale games. This one was 6, I guess, because Game of Thrones is like long. But they actually had a choice that was actually like, wow. They went from like having no impact at all to having like such great impact, like all of a sudden. Like literally, like in episode 6, depending on your choices, one character dies and one lives, and you play as that character. But I think that ultimately it's not going to make a difference, because in Season 2, they're just going to kill off all the characters anyway to try to, have everyone have the same experience. You know what I mean? Because that's what they do usually. If they have, like, characters that you can choose to die or not, they survive, but then they die. Because it's just lazy,
Yeah. Like I said, that's just my take on the whole story and gameplay aspect in the industry. I think there isn't enough balance between the two, and that's why sometimes, because I feel every game does need a story to a certain degree. That every game does need a story, or at least a way to form a story. Because even when you play Pac-Man, believe it or not, there's still a story being told. You're playing a yellow dot pizza thing, and you're walking around eating dots, and you're trying to avoid ghosts. And whether people agree or not, that's it. That's the premise. There's a story there to be told for the most part.
Yeah.
It's not a narrative, but it's a story. Every game has a story to a degree, and all games require that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah, but I think it's one thing to require a story, but what I think video games don't require is a narrative. Video games don't need a narrative. Narratives can add to a game, but they're not necessary. I don't think they are anyway.
I think some people actually might not agree that that's the way that the industry is headed towards, that they're just focused towards storytelling, because there are a lot of games that omit single player from their games, and it's just multiplayer focused. What do you think about that?
That is a good point. Yes, the degrading of single player, and I think that's why Doom took me by surprise last year. Is Doom was just excellent. It was one of my games of the year, because Doom is probably one of the last first-person shooter games I ever played that had a really good campaign, and its multiplayer was actually the It's good when games like Doom come along and the campaign is the focal point and the multiplayer is just second thought. So, I think both campaign and multiplayer should be good, but for the way Doom turned out, I think it was in its favor that the single player campaign was better than the multiplayer, because we don't see that a lot. Especially not in these days when first-person shooters are released yearly, and
Yeah,
campaign.
I do
It's
think
just
games should have both though. I think game typically like unless it's like Bethesda, they shouldn't put multiplayer in their games obviously. But like
well,
for the most
well, I wonder
part,
how. Yeah,
no, I mean they
go
shouldn't
ahead.
put in multiplayer just to have multiplayer is what I'm saying,
Uh
right?
huh.
But I think typically
Yeah.
a game is really truly worth $60 if it has both, as well as
Mm,
co-op too.
yeah.
It just gives you the most value. Like, 'cause me for like personally, the Uncharted games are known for their amazing storytelling, right? But I actually got the
Mm-hmm.
most enjoyment out of its multiplayer. Like Uncharted
Hmm.
2, I actually had more memories with the multiplayer than the single player. I actually barely scratched the surface of the single player campaign in Uncharted 2. I
Right.
actually mostly multiplayer. Like I used to be in a clan that was like I think the leader of my clan was like number 9 in the world leaderboard, so I took that game seriously back in the day, and I just had so much fun with it. That's why I was really disappointed when they made the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection. They omitted the multiplayer from Uncharted 2. I was really upset, and I wound up
Mm.
I didn't buy it because of that.
Yeah, I think it's very telling when a developer makes both the story mode and the multiplayer just as good as the other. Because when they do that, I think it really does warrant a $60 purchase.
Hmm.
Because I picking up Battlefield 1, I didn't feel Battlefield 1 was really worth $60.
Yeah, its single
Um,
player was just tacked on. I feel like it wasn't really.
It's single player. Wow, was it single player constantly switching stories super fast, and I mean, just the very beginning of the Battlefield 1 campaign was kind of off-putting because, I mean, if you play Battlefield 1 on PC, the aerial controls, ugh, they're abysmal and they're just really off-putting.
They're not much
So I had
better
to
on
play that
consoles.
opening scene with a controller and then switch to keyboard and mouse for the boots on ground segments.
Yeah,
But I
I
think
don't
I
really
got,
like
I
aerial
think,
combat in EA games.
yeah, yeah. But everybody, honestly, everybody got the most out of Battlefield 1 for its online. But even its online didn't have as many features or as much depth as Battlefield 4 did. So I questioned whether it was even worth $60.
Yeah, me
I
too.
question the price of games. I do. I don't. Some people say that that takes away from the hobby, but I think if you're a smart consumer, you get the most out of your hobby.
I don't know what's worse, honestly. Single player only games that are priced at $60 that have a terrible story, like The Order 1886, for example, or multiplayer only games that are for $60, and after a while, let's say if the servers get shut down, it's pretty much a brick. Like it's useless.
Yeah. Okay. So, speaking of that, let me tell you a little quick story. Um, when I used to play on the PS3, I was really invested into PlayStation Home. I think I spent like over $2,000 over time and just items in that game.
Wow.
And when they shut down PlayStation Home, I felt robbed,
Oh man, I feel you.
and a lot of
PlayStation
people did
Home.
too.
I love that
PlayStation,
game. Yeah.
PlayStation Home. Remember, it was you would make your own avatar and you could walk around and talk to um, other people's avatars, and you could purchase items and play mini games, and they would open exhibits that were references to other exclusive game worlds and stuff like that.
They also I think they had an E3
Yeah,
booth one
when they
year.
shut
Yeah.
down PlayStation Home, I was pretty heartbroken because I had invested a lot of money into that.
I invested a lot
And
of money into it too. I remember my favorite thing to do was to buy like these, you can buy your own homes that were based off of different
Mhm.
worlds. And my favorite one I
Yeah,
remember was the Ratchet and Clank one. You had
I
like
owned every house in every world.
remember the what was it? Loco Roco Island? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
That was my
Loco
that was
Island.
my other one that I liked. I loved
Mm.
PlayStation Home. Yeah, that's the thing. When they shut it down, it was just terrible.
Yeah, I had countless hours in there. I met a lot of friends on there, but when they did that, I felt that that was just, yeah. I think I don't. I realize why Sony did it, but at the same time, they didn't recompensate it to anyone. They didn't give. Did they do anything to recompensate? Did they give people at least, I don't know, 4 years of PlayStation Plus to make up for it at least? Did they do anything to compensate for it? Because there were people that legit invested money into PlayStation Home now, and just to have all of their digital items and everything that they invested in gone, that'd be like if World of Warcraft got shut down today and everybody that invested in mounts and in armor and all those kinds of things just lost it all. You know?
I don't think I'll ever do that. Invest money and time into those kind of games because I just can't do it.
Yeah. I think I learned from PlayStation Home. I think PlayStation Home taught me to not ever do that again. I mean, because I started getting into Paladins. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to invest money in. I'm not investing physical money into games anymore because you never know if they'll get shut down the next day, and then there goes all your money.
Well, that's the good thing I think is an objective benefit of PC, is that the community, since it's a more open platform and you can pretty much do what you want. The community could typically, like, for example, with the older Battlefield games that EA shut down, the community is kind of keeping it alive and having their own servers up. So I think that's a benefit of PC, that you don't really typically have to worry about that. But
yeah, the PC gaming community, they keep games alive for years to come, and I think that's a huge benefit, honestly. I mean, there are people that are still playing World at War on the PC right now, and you can't really play World of War. Well, hold on. No, the PlayStation 3 servers aren't down yet, and the Xbox 360 servers aren't down yet either, are they?
No, they're not. The Xbox, I don't know about the PS3, but the 360 servers will never shut down because of the whole backwards compatibility thing they have going on now.
Yeah.
Since more people are able to play it.
I think, quick question, dude. Do you think that this generation, not this generation, I think these past 2 years so far, do you feel like Microsoft has started to do more pro-consumer things than Sony? Because I feel like they have.
Interesting, because this is exactly what we were talking about, what I was talking with Bullet Barry about. We were talking, I asked him, like, because he made the transition from console to PC as well. And he was talking, I asked him what does he personally think is the more anti-consumer company? And he said Sony. And I actually agreed with him because at first Sony was the beginning of the generation, right? Sony was the more pro-consumer, during the Don Matrick era and, that time period. But as soon as, like, Phil Spencer stepped in, it kind of shifted. Because I think Sony got too arrogant, they got too confident because they were selling PS4s like hotcakes. So they really had no reason to be pro-consumer because they kind of already won the console war, I guess.
Right. I've noticed that Microsoft has been doing more pro-consumer things, like giving backwards compatibility. I think them having the Xbox One X and the One S is beneficial to the consumers because now they have 3 options of which console they want to get. They now have all of their games on PC, and hopefully they'll bring their PC games to the consoles as well. They've just been doing a lot that's good for the consumer, and they're not given credit for it. And the minute Sony announces, I don't know, I mean, they announced The Last of Us 2, and that suddenly makes up for all of Sony's sins. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think what Sony's been doing lately, like with the cross-platform play, for example, that was actually my most popular video that I've made in the past month. I think it hit 5K, and I made it like 3 weeks ago, I think. A lot of people seem to agree with me that it's fucked up that Sony's literally everyone, including the Nintendo Switch, is doing the cross-platform play with Minecraft and Rocket League, but Sony's saying, "Oh, we're not going to do it because we need to think of the children." There are people who abuse the system or whatever and bully people, and we can't do anything about that. Like, give me a fucking break.
Right. I think Sony hasn't done anything to really make up for the stupid anti-consumer bullshit that they've done these past 2 years. Like I said, it's, for me, they can release the greatest game ever, but if they're still a shit company and they still treat their consumers like shit, I won't care. I have a lot of console gamers come up to me and they say, well, I don't care about the platform or the business model, I just care about the games. And I say, that's fine to care about the games, but the more you allow these companies to continue their business practices the way they do, the more they're going to degrade your hobby and make your hobby worse. because you can really like Uncharted and you can really want to play it, but let's say Sony one day implements that DRM that Microsoft was unsuccessful in. Let's say they do that one day. Is it still going to be worth it to you as a consumer to let these companies continuously screw you over just because you really love a game?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you put your pro-consumerism ahead of your, if you put your pro-consumerism ahead of being a gamer, it will make your hobby better. And I don't think we have enough gamers doing that, especially on the PC. You have all these PC gamers continuously supporting Star Citizen, even though the last demo was abysmal that they showed.
And they also support early access games, which is another thing.
And they support early access, depending on which early access they are, but I don't support early access.
DayZ's still in development. What does that say,
Ugh. I mean, just yesterday, they finally got a development was Unturned, and I downloaded it to start playing it. But I feel bad for the people that were paying early access to play that game, and now everybody's paying it for free. It's just,
yeah.
I think when it comes to bad consumerism, both all three platforms, actually all four, now that Nintendo's starting to do something.
Oh yeah, with paid online.
All four platforms. Yeah, all four platforms have some really dumb consumers.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have these PC gamers investing thousands of dollars. I mean, I know I sound hypocritical because I did the same with PlayStation Home, but I learned from my mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But you have all these PC gamers investing tons of money into CSGO. All these gamers investing tons of money into League of Legends. And I know that it's a game that they play continuously and they want to support the devs, but
it makes them not make a new game.
Yeah,
they're not going to make a new game, yeah.
They're not going to. They're not going to.
Why do you think Valve never counts to 3? Because they make so much money off of Team Fortress 2 that there's no it makes no business sense for them to make another Team Fortress game. It just doesn't. It made sense to make a new Counter-Strike game because it got outdated, but
Valve is going to be lazy for a long time because they don't need to make a new game to make money. And it sucks. It really does. Because they're making tons of money off of Dota and tons of money off of CSGO. They're not going to make a new game.
Yeah, absolutely. They pretty much dominate the PC market. There's no reason for them to make new games.
Yeah,
that's not where their money is.
I want Origin to step it up. GOG has given them a pretty decent amount of competition for the most part. I think they could do better, but
yeah, I think competition is always good, no matter what.
Yeah, competition is good, especially here on the PC platform. We really need someone to compete with Steam because, like I said, Valve. What's the last game they produced? I believe it was It was Portal 2. Was Portal 2 the last game they released? I believe it was.
CS:GO came out in 2012. I think that was their last game.
5 years ago, then, huh?
Yeah.
Well, who knows? I mean, Valve has some talented developers. They can make some really good games, but
I think
who knows if they'll ever get out of their comfort zone.
Once TF2 gets like really, really outdated and runs its course, I think they'll make a TF3, but that's not like till maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now, I think.
Yeah.
I think Gabe Newell will probably be dead before there's another game.
A lot of people are really craving a new Valve single player game.
Half-Life 3.
I know I am. No, I believe Gabe Newell says he won't be making that because they don't have any new ideas.
I think
it's just
another reason why is because typically when games have sequels, they always compare it to the older games, and Valve probably feels that, like, I think part of the reason why they haven't made Half-Life 3 yet, I think part of the reason is they kind of feel that no matter what they do, no matter how game the good is, people are going to always be like, oh, well, it's not as good as 2. You know what I mean?
Well, Valve, when it comes to Valve producing games, they always strive to innovate. But I don't think you constantly need to be innovating to have a good game.
Yeah, I feel you.
Hold on. Hold on, I'm looking at a Top Hats and Champagne tweet that was replied.
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, for the most part, I think I've exhausted every topic that was on my mind, YouTube.
Well, I'm gonna ask you a few things then, if that's all right.
Go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
All right. So one thing that I asked Bullet Barry, something I'm very curious, because like you, he's a PC gaming YouTuber. What would you say is the main aspect of the console industry that made you make the jump to PC?
This generation. I think you might have noticed it yourself that I think you might have noticed yourself that this generation was kind of scary. How can I? That's the best way I can say it. When we saw what Microsoft was attempting at the beginning of this generation, I kind of knew myself that, okay, this is going to give Sony the huge lead. And once Sony gets that huge lead, they're going to be the ones dominating, and then they're going to start screwing us over slowly too. Yeah. And Nintendo, well, there's nothing about Nintendo that really interests me.
Me neither.
And I was thinking, man, maybe I should just buy a console and just deal with it. But then I started to want to do YouTube. Hold on, give me a minute. Sorry. But then I wanted to start to do YouTube, and I was looking for a PC that I could use for editing. And so I put together a really cheap one. And when I was putting that PC together, I was talking to a friend who knew more about PCs than I did. And I said, okay, cool. Now I just got to get my PS4, buy a PS4 and connect it to this thing so I can start doing my channel. And he said, well, you know, that's not too bad of a setup you got. Why don't you go and get this graphics card and you put it in there and you can play your games? I'm like, oh, but I don't want to play, games that look like crap or anything like that. And he said, no, you don't get it. You can play all of the big AAA games with this card. And I didn't believe him, but he said you could. And so I went out and I got that graphics card, and I believe it was a GTX 750 at the time. And I installed it, and he showed me Steam and how to get games off of Steam and everything. And I tried it out for about a month, and I fell in love. I just fell in love with how easy and intuitive it was to just get a game, install it, and play it, and mess with the graphic settings and files and mods, and how much easier and less of a pain in the ass it is to record games off your computer than it is to go and get an Elgato and do all that shit.
So,
and well, hold on. And so I knew that I loved it, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna go with this. So I went out and got better parts and built a better PC, and that's the one I'm currently using. And that's how I got into PC gaming, because I wanted to start doing YouTube. And I figured that if I game on PC, that'll make doing these videos much easier too, because I can just capture the footage. And I started getting into PC games. I started getting into different genres of games that weren't just cinematic games. I started, I guess you could say, evolving as a gamer.
Right.
My taste started changing. I started seeing games differently. I think a lot of PC gamers go through that change. Some PC gamers just start off as PC gamers, but some, they get into it at some point or another. But the majority that I know hopped onto PC gaming from this generation.
Yeah, that's
so
kind
like
of what
I said,
I've gathered too.
Yeah, so like I said, that's why I jumped from consoles.
So that's crazy though. Before this generation, you had no prior knowledge at all about PC and Steam.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Very interesting.
I know, right? I gosh, I didn't know a lot about PCs. All I knew was that I mean, all I knew is that I wanted it to make my videos, and I fell in love with the platform. I never even, I mean, I knew people gamed on PC, but I thought all people were playing it back then was like World of Warcraft and things like that. I didn't realize that you could play the biggest games out there on the PC. I didn't realize that the biggest player base was on the PC. I didn't realize that there were so many free games, so many discounts. I didn't realize. When I started learning, I started to find out how many lies were told to me about PC gaming.
That's
And it's
interesting.
those lies, yeah, and it's those lies that inspired me to make videos on people that constantly spread those lies.
Yeah. Well,
Because I do want more people to game on PC. I don't want people to leave their consoles. People can game on consoles just fine. I just want people to try PC gaming and move to it.
mhm.
Because I know a lot of people enjoy their consoles, but you know, what's one more platform gonna do? For me, I don't have a reason to go to consoles. But I do feel like people have a reason to try the PC, or at least play on it. That doesn't necessarily mean I think they need to leave their consoles or not play on consoles. I just think that the bigger player base we get on PC and the more people learn about it, the better.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that I'm sure you agree with me that all platforms pretty much have their place in the industry. If one fails, then that's bad for everybody.
Yeah, I do agree. This was when I started really getting into PC gaming, I was becoming very elitist about it. But I kind of had to like humble myself and learn a little more and realize that consoles, although I personally don't like the business model behind consoles, but I understand that consoles serve a place, and that place is that if people just don't want to get into PC gaming, consoles are an alternative, just like PC gaming is an alternative. PC gaming really does benefit from having consoles in the market, and the reason I say that is because you get a lot of these games like Minecraft. You know, it was blowing up on PC, and it was there originally, and then it moved to consoles and became like the biggest thing ever. Granted, I don't really care about it, but it really helped the team at Mojang, and it really made them a lot of money. Because I think the PC is a good place for people to start making their games, and then moving them to consoles as well. But on the console side,
a lot of companies,
it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
These consoles, they make games just for them, and they don't move them anywhere. And I don't think that really benefits consumers or the developers, because they're not making as much profit as they could be making. All they're trying to do is sell, you know, their hardware and sell it at a loss as well. I mean, do you honestly think Uncharted wouldn't have at least triple or double the sales it currently has if it was on all platforms? Do you think that it wouldn't sell more?
Obviously, it would.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. So whenever I see these PC games going to console, I get happy. Granted, there are some people in the community that get mad because they feel like their games will get degraded or they'll get streamlined, but that hasn't always been the case. I mean, with games like Crysis and games like Fallout, that has been the case, and Elder Scrolls, because those games used to have a lot more depth on the PC, and then they moved to consoles and they got streamlined. I think developers shouldn't treat console gamers like they're dumb.
No.
I think console gamers do want games with depth, like, you know, games on the PC. I think they do want that level of complexity. I think it's just these developers and companies honestly think console gamers are dumb. And it's quite insulting to see that, because when I play the original Fallout and then I play Fallout 4, I think to myself, wow, that's That's a huge downgrade, in my opinion. I mean, graphically, the game is prettier. There's more environments, and there's a lot more. I'm gonna say it's a bigger leap in terms of technology, sure, but in terms of gameplay elements, it's lacking so much. The depth is gone. It's almost as if, like I said, as if Bethesda thinks, oh no, console gamers, they only want action. They don't want that depth or complexity. And that's not true. Console gamers, they do want depth. They do want complexity. So when these PC games go to consoles and they get downgraded and streamlined, that's just, you know, it hurts to see that happen because...
Yeah, I mean... I feel that there are also certain companies, though, that do the opposite approach. They try to take advantage of the PC community. Like, there's so many games, for some reason, I don't even understand, because every game starts development on a PC, right? That how come there's some games that, like, have... the PC version is ported from the console? I don't get that.
Say that again?
Like, why are there certain PC versions of games that are, like, ported from the consoles? And are typically really bad.
Yeah.
Like, remember Batman Arkham Knight and...
Well, those exceptions are very rare. They're not the rule. They're the exceptions that happens.
Right, but I'm just trying to figure out why it happens.
Now, on the other side, we were saying about console ports, PC just getting a console port. I agree with you. One of the reasons I really love GTA 5, and GTA 5 is my favorite Grand Theft Auto game of all time, and I've played almost all of them, is because I played it on the PC, not just the fact that I played it on the PC, but the fact that it was a dedicated PC version. When you open up Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PC, it has a ton of options that a PC game would. The game is built up. I don't know if they built it from the ground up to be it's a PC version, but it definitely feels like a PC game. On the other hand, when I open up Nier Automata on the PC, it is lacking in options. It is just a straight up port from the console.
Yeah, like recently, I think when Mafia 3 came out last year, the PC version was originally locked at 30 frames.
Yeah.
Then they had to come out with a 60 frame patch because people were pissed off.
That's the thing is, these developers, I mean, like, what I appreciate about Microsoft is when Microsoft says that they're going to make a PC version of their exclusives, they really do it. You know, Gears of War is a straight up PC version. You know, Sony, on the other hand, half-asses their console ports on the PC. They half-ass them, and it's almost an insult to these PC gamers. Like, oh yeah, we'll put some of our games on the PC, but we'll half-ass them.
What games do we even have on the PC?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know.
Like Nier, Nier isn't a Sony game, but it's only on the PlayStation and the PC, but you can clearly tell that it's a port of the PlayStation 4 version. The game is locked at 60 FPS. I don't know what's up with the resolution. I put the resolution to 1080p, but it up-reses, and it looks like it's stuck at... It looks like its original resolution's 900p, because its text is kind of blurry, and it's definitely not 1080p. The graphical options are a joke. The cutscenes are locked to 30 FPS.
Wow.
It is a pathetic port on the PC. It's effortless, and I think it's the kinds of things that really devalue the PC as a platform when you take away those kinds of options that most PC games have. Not to mention things that Bethesda has done, like a lot of graphical options are left in the INI files instead of in the game, like they used to be. Like depth of field isn't even an option in Fallout 4. You have to go into the files to set it.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's taking a step back rather than a step forward, because we do want these console games on the PC, but we don't want them half-assed. We want them to be a dedicated PC version, because when you go out to when you go on Steam or when you go out to get a PC version of a game, you're expecting a PC version. You're not expecting an exact console replica that you can just play on the PC. I mean, granted, having them on the PC is better than not having them on the PC.
Right.
But at what point? At what point is the difference between getting it on the PC and the console if the resolution is still 900p and the frame rate is locked and the cutscenes run at 30 and you don't really have much choice over that? At what point are you benefiting? Are consumers benefiting from getting the PC version if they can't uncap the frame rate, if they can't get the actual resolution, if they don't have graphical options to really improve the game?
Yeah. So I'm gonna just segue into a different topic, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So
I talk forever.
it's all right. It's all right. What do you think? How do you think the next generation of consoles are gonna play out? Because we're already 4 years in to the current generation. Like it's coming.
That went by fast.
It's coming.
That went by fast.
So how do you think the PlayStation 5 and whatever they're gonna call the Xbox? Who even knows at this point? They go from Xbox 360, Xbox One. I don't know what the next one's going to be. But, some people speculated that we won't hear about the next generation of consoles because of the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. But Sony actually went out and said that the Pro isn't really meant to extend the life of the PS4. It's just meant to give people more options, I guess. That's what they said.
I think that's fine if there's more options.
But like, when do you wager
Okay.
that it'll happen, and how do you think it will play out?
I think we're going to see the same tactic that was used here. I think Sony's going to release very, very underwhelming hardware that is definitely more powerful than the previous hardware, but it's still underwhelming in terms of how hardware goes. And the reason I think they're going to do that is because they were so successful with it this generation that they're just going to do it the next generation. Because I honestly don't think console gamers aren't going to purchase a PS4 because its hardware isn't that impressive. Because as
most console gamers aren't informed about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, as it was shown this generation, the hardware was not impressive. And they still bought it.
Yeah. So I can't, but like I don't see
run?
it being less powerful than the PS4 Pro. Obviously, the PS4 Pro is what is it? Native 4K, 30 frames, something like that.
It's checkerboard 4K.
Sometimes it's native.
What I think is going in terms of how powerful, I think we're going to see it with the same GPU and upgraded RAM, but I think what they're really going to improve on the PS5 if it happens is probably the processor, because the processor on the PS4 and the PS4 Pro is ancient. It's old.
Even when it came out, it was old, right?
Pro. Yeah, it bottlenecks the PS4 Pro, which is why you had bad performance issues on Skyrim Special Edition on the PS4 Pro. Which I'm surprised. I'm surprised that Skyrim Special Edition even runs at 30 FPS on the consoles. That's just wow.
I can't see 30 frames being a thing next generation. I just don't see that happening. I'm not sure about resolution. I'm not sure about resolution though. I think that's the real wild card here.
I think we're going to see at the minimum 1080p 30 FPS. Granted, I do think we will see more 60 FPS games. But I don't think that 30 FPS. I don't think 30 FPS will go away. I think a lot of games are still going to be running at 30 FPS. But who knows? I mean, Metal Gear Solid 5, that game ran at 60 FPS on the consoles, and that's a gorgeous game. I mean, granted, it takes a lot of optimization, so it takes a lot of effort for them to really get that frame rate. And if they can do that with a PS4, makes me wonder what they could do with the PS5 if they actually really put time and effort in. But like I said, Sony gamers aren't going to suddenly not buy a PS4 or PS5 because it's not running games at 60 FPS. They're still going to buy it.
From what I can gather, I think Sony's probably going to reveal their console first.
You know, I'm still not convinced that they're going to be releasing the PS5 anytime soon. Maybe in the next 2 years, possibly. The coming year now.
I predict E3 2019 we'll get information. That's my prediction.
Man, let me tell you, last generation lasted much longer than it should have.
It lasted 7 years, yeah.
Whoa, I thought it was 9. It felt like 9 to me.
The Xbox 360, the 360 came out in 2000. No, 8 years. Sorry, the 360 came out in 2005, and the consoles were released in 2013. Right? Yeah, 2013. So 8 years.
Yeah, but for their time, the 360 and the PS3 had some pretty impressive hardware. Whereas this generation, they didn't have anything impressive.
Yeah, but I just think they looked at how much the Wii sold and kind of realized that, okay, they don't really care about graphics to consumers, you know?
Right. Well, here's the thing. Consoles used to be that cutting edge set of hardware. When you look at the NES or the Super Nintendo, or
I know,
the Nintendo 64.
It's hard to believe that Nintendo used to be the innovator in like hardware and graphics. If you look at them today,
hard to believe, isn't it? But I think things have changed. Times have changed because if you have companies dedicating specific sets of hardware that can be put on one platform, all the innovation in hardware is going to happen there. And that's where NVIDIA and Intel and AMD come in. Because the PC is a platform where companies can dedicate to constantly be making new graphics cards and processors that are cutting edge. And that's why the PC in today's time is always going to be ahead of the consoles. Because I don't think Sony's going to go out of their way to get a GTX 1080 and an Intel i7 and put it in their console and sell it for $400. They're not going to do that.
I don't see consoles ever being like upgradable or anything like that, so I can't see them like, you know, taking like, you know, being better than the PC. That just, it's stupid. People are going to say that.
Who knows though? I don't think it's completely out of their range to do that. I mean, Phil Spencer himself said that there could be an upgradable Xbox in the future. I wouldn't just dismiss it. I mean, I think it could happen. I mean,
I honestly think that how the next generation is going to play out, I think a lot of the influence will be based on how much the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X sell. You know, because their whole marketing strategy is that, oh, well, this is more powerful. If that actually works, then they'll focus on power.
Well, I mean,
if it doesn't,
I mean, but could you imagine? Could you imagine if you got the PS5 and you had the option to put a GTX 1080 in there if you wanted a simple installation? If you could do that.
Oh no, I'm not saying.
Could you imagine how? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be great, but I just don't know if it's gonna happen. You know.
Yeah. Well, whether it will happen or not, who knows? I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon, but I don't think it's completely out of what's the word? I don't think it's completely impossible for them to do that, or not going to be something that they even consider. Because I'm pretty sure they're considering it now as we speak. Because if they don't have to dedicate themselves into finding ways to get cheap prices on hardware parts and then building a set of hardware and then selling it at a loss, what if they could just sell you a console with some standard set hardware and you yourself could change that hardware over time? They could prolong a generation, and like I said, they could prolong a generation and they wouldn't have to worry about coming up with the next set of hardware for a while.
I don't know. I think they like having new consoles.
I'm saying.
Like I think they like coming out with new hardware. You know what I mean?
Gamer.
Yeah. I just can't see them being like, oh yeah, we're gonna make the PS5, which is upgradable, and you don't have to buy another console again. I don't see that happening.
I don't see it happening either, because I know Sony and Microsoft, they want full control over the hardware, so it probably wouldn't even happen.
No way.
They like having control. And they like knowing what the hardware people chose is, because it gives them less stress. Because let's say you one of their customers puts a 1060 or 1070 in their PS5, and maybe they don't do things right, and it causes hardware issues, it would give Sony a headache to have, you know, customer service being called all the time about these issues. I don't think they would want to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm also wondering how long it will take for the general consumer to adopt, like, let's say, Ultra HD and 4K, because we're not there yet, you know?
I don't think we'll be there to possibly next generation. I mean, 4K is taking longer to get cheaper than 1080p was.
Yeah.
No, not 1080p, but just HD in general.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that last generation, getting into HD, it got cheaper a lot quicker over time. But here, 4K is taking a lot longer to get into.
It really
it's taking
is.
a lot longer to get cheaper.
Even within the PC
Because
community, it's not
8K,
that big. Yeah.
8K is already here too. So who knows how long it will be before 4K becomes affordable. And if it's not even that affordable on the PC, I couldn't imagine it being any more affordable on the consoles.
Yeah, I don't. So that's why I'm just wondering what we're gonna have next generation. I think, like I said, the real wild card here is the resolution, not the frame rate. I can't see it being below 60. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I don't think developers. Well, okay, developers obviously do care about 60, but these companies, they don't care about 60.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they will sell a game at a low frame rate if it just makes them money.
Right. No, but I'm saying for the system itself to be at least be capable of all its games being 60. That's what I'm saying.
Like capable of 60 and 4K, you think?
I don't know. 4K, I'm not sure. I mean, it would be weird if their system, like if the PS5 was less powerful than the PS4 Pro, you know what I mean? So I don't think that's gonna. I'm not sure. I'm not sure because last generation was also 1080p, Generation 7. So
right. Well, last generation wasn't 1080p.
You can play your games. You could play PS3 games in 1080p.
Which games specifically, though? I believe that they were mostly indie games that could run at 1080p.
I believe it was native 1080i and upscale 1080p. That's what it was. Sorry.
Then there you go. Yeah.
But if you think about it, though, there's certain games that don't even run at 1080p on the PS4 and are like 720p. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some games have the same
900p
resolution as the PS3, is what I'm saying. A lot of games.
Yeah. That was quite a big disappointment.
Yeah.
Because 1080p was already something PC gamers were hitting for a while, and 4K is here, and PC gamers don't even want to get into 4K because, well, let's face it, 4K is just expensive. It really is. It's expensive for console gamers and PC gamers. And as much as Phil wants to say that 4K is going to, be affordable on the $500 Xbox One X, which, by the way, I think, $500, it's a pretty fair price to be hitting that frame rate and that resolution. But Phil clearly said that, it's up to the developers whether they want to have 4K or 60 or not.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of developers are just going to half-ass 4K by making it checkerboard and upscaled, because I don't think a lot of them really do care to really be utilizing the Xbox One X hardware.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, though.
In terms of upgrades, the graphics card's a big upgrade on that system, but in terms of processor, hasn't made that big of a leap.
Yeah.
And I don't think it benefits the system at all. At which point, it's no different than a PS4 Pro, in the sense that it'll probably just be bottlenecked, just like the PS4 Pro was. I don't know if you know what bottlenecking is.
I'm not too familiar with technical terms.
That's when the processor is too weak to fully push the graphics card to its limit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
right.
When the processor, for instance, I had this issue when I first built my PC, because I put an AMD FX 4100 in there, and I had a GTX 970, and it was bottlenecking my 970 because the processor wasn't pushing the graphics card to its limit, so I couldn't get above 60 FPS. And I
Wow.
was playing things at medium to high settings instead of max. So then I had to go and get an 8350, and I popped that in, and I was finally using my 970 to its full advantage, and I was playing things at a higher frame rate. That's where the PS4 Pro is at currently, and it seems that Xbox One X is going to be stuck in the same position as the PS4 Pro, in that it will be bottlenecking. And sure, you'll get that 4K, but you won't be able to hit that 60 FPS because that processor isn't going to be very it's not going to be very useful.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Well. Yeah, I'm honestly not sure how the ninth generation will turn out. It's going to be very interesting, for sure.
It's every console generation is interesting.
You're still going to have JTech going around. We have the best exclusives. Like, the console wars will never go.
The console wars will never die, mainly because these companies need console wars and fanboys to survive. Let's just face that fact. That they need the fanboys to survive.
I feel like the competition between Sony and Microsoft is much friendlier than it was last generation. Like, people talk about how bad the console wars are now. I think it was much worse last gen, in my opinion, because I was around back then.
I don't think so, because last gen a lot of people didn't know what the fuck they were talking about when it comes to hardware. I think consumers are a lot more informed on hardware this generation, and even though they're more informed on hardware, they're still spreading misinformation, and I think that's what makes it worse for me.
I think the only annoying thing,
for instance, they pick up on terms like teraflops, and now they're using that as an argument, even though they don't even know how to use the term properly. So they just go ahead and just take teraflops and they start throwing it around. They start throwing around 4K, and they don't.
Notice during my videos, I never used any of those that terminology because I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about.
Yeah.
There's no point doing that if you don't know. Like, it's you shouldn't be ashamed of not being like tech savvy or hardware savvy. It's not a big deal.
If you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know.
But I'm not going to claim to be a hardware expert. You know, I'm just going to talk about software.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about issues that are a big deal in the industry, like DLCs and microtransactions and all that shit. And you don't really need to have a hardware knowledge to know that these are issues. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's
full price,
it seems like
$60 games with microtransactions. You know, I just hate those games.
Funny. Okay, I think it's funny because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we got all these tech experts coming out. People that are now tech experts are like, oh yeah, I know a lot about this stuff.
JTech TV, right?
Right. JTech, or Crap Gamer who doesn't know jack shit about anything, and he's just talking out of his ass, or Supersonic Wolf saying, oh, they could just add more teraflops. I'm like, that's not how it works.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Fanboys are funny.
They are.
I love them in a way that I just like listening to them and thinking to myself, you guys don't know what you're talking about. As for you, YouTube, you weren't specifically a console fanboy over a specific console, were you? You were just a console peasant troll. That's all you really were, right?
Yes.
You didn't have you weren't a Sony fanboy or an Xbox fanboy, were you?
Never, no. Not even outside my character. I was never really a fanboy towards a specific platform. I always typically preferred Sony products for the most part, but I was never oh yeah, we have the best games and this is it's stupid. It's stupid.
Right. If you had the ability to get into PC gaming, would it be something you yourself would ever be interested in getting in?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
If someone sent you a graphics card, or someone sent you the components to build a PC, donated to you and you built it, would you play it?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm saying there's a lot of games on there that you might want to get into. Honestly, I think Civilization 6.
I do have prior, I don't know if you know about this, but I do have prior PC gaming experience. A lot of people picked up on that. They looked at my Steam profile. I have a lot of hours on different games. I think my most
What generation did you play? Last generation?
Yeah.
Oof.
Like around
Were you playing
2012.
during the Windows Vista days?
No. Last generation as in 7.
Oh. Okay.
Because we're in 10 now.
If you played, yeah, because if you played in the Windows Vista era, oh, those were some dark days.
No, I played around like 2012,
I think,
2013. That's when I really played.
2012, 2013. So yeah, you're playing the Windows 7 era then. Yeah, that Windows 7 era was one of the best. That's when PC gaming was getting a lot more accessible, because for that when it comes to PC gaming, it's very reliant on how good the operating system of that generation is.
Yeah.
Windows 7 was a great operating system. Windows 8, not so much, but thank God Windows 7 was still around. I think Windows 10 is the best operating system they have ever made.
Really?
Yeah, that's one thing about PC gaming that
I think a lot of people
have a little bit of trouble with is that, but for now it's not really a problem because the majority of the population has Windows 10. But if Windows releases the next crappy operating system and it's really bad, and they tell you that they're going to start dropping support for their previous operating system and you have to jump to this one, it really ruins the PC gaming experience.
Yeah, I remember
For instance, during the Windows Vista era, a lot of people were not PC gaming because that was making PC gaming a difficult task.
Yeah. I remember it was really bad, Vista.
Yeah. So it's very reliant on how good the operating system is, because there's not a lot of support for Mac OS, and Linux doesn't have that much support either. So
my only issue
if the
with
operating
10
system
is that
shit, then
the only problem I really have with 10 is that it tries too much to be like a smartphone.
That's an issue. Yeah.
You know,
that's an issue not a lot of console gamers bring up, or PC gamers. But then again, that is all based on a what-if scenario. So
yeah,
it's not really worth arguing because we're not in that scenario. Because Windows 10 is here, and Windows 10 is great, and it's made PC gaming even better. I don't think Windows will ever make that same mistake of Windows 8 or Vista ever again.
Probably not. I remember during a lot of developers boycotted Windows 8 when it came out.
Yeah.
I think what was his name? The guy who created.
Like I said, if you're gonna, people want to get into PC gaming, always remember that a crappy operating system can ruin the experience for you. But like I said, thank God we have Windows 10, which is great. I honestly love Windows 10. A lot of people, the most amount of people that really don't like Windows 10 are people that can barely even run it.
I've actually had a lot of issues. Like, Windows 10 actually made my computer a lot slower. So I understand where they're coming from.
Yes, because Windows, your computer isn't really fit to run Windows 10 is probably the issue. Your hardware probably isn't that great for it. Because Windows 10, it requires more resources than previous Windows. Because that's how each operating system goes. The more advanced the operating system gets, the higher the requirements are. You need a PC that's within at least 4 years old to run Windows 10 at its best, for the most part, I believe.
Like, I thought about downgrading a few times.
Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that though, because I could be wrong. But most people don't move to Windows 10 because their computers it won't run it very well, and then they will blame Windows 10 when it's really just their shitty hardware that they never upgraded.
I don't know, I'm not blaming Windows 10. It's just my personal experience.
Yeah. For you, I would have stayed with Windows 7, but they dropped support for that, and I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, that sucks.
Windows 7 was good. Windows 7 was good. But I like I said, I really enjoy Windows 10. I really do. I don't regret jumping to it.
I think the U.S. government, right? Don't they still pay Microsoft to give XP certain updates for them, if I'm not mistaken?
A lot of businesses and the government do it because, when you go to Walmart and places like that, they're still running some of their machines off of XP, and God knows why.
My school still had XP when I graduated last year.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, it's just Windows 10 is I think it's because a lot of these programs aren't supported by Windows 10 yet, so making the upgrade could cause them to lose a lot of programs that they really like. But
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, because the reason why they didn't upgrade to 7 or whatever, or 10, is because my school has, like an AP program, and in the computer lab they take certain tests for the AP whatever, and it doesn't, that software isn't available on the new Windows, if that makes sense. The software that the school uses.
Yeah. Well, for me, I was going to Chase Bank the other day, and the credit card machine was going under maintenance. And as I was watching it go under maintenance, I noticed that they were booting the credit card machine up, and they were booting Windows XP on the damn thing. So,
oh boy.
I mean, Safeway, I believe, still uses MS DOS. I'm just shocked that I don't know why. I don't know why. But anyway, I've had a good time talking, but it's time for me to start getting to work on a video.
All right, no problem.
I think it's been about 2 hours we've been talking, right?
I have the exact time right here. It's been 1 hour, 48 minutes, and yeah.
Hey, but it's not as long as Barry's talk, so I win.
Yep.
All right, NoobTube. Well, I mean, thanks for having me on, and I wish you good luck with your channel. I think you're doing a good thing by trying to change, because let me tell you, like I said, a lot of other channels, instead of trying to change, they double down on what they say and they get nowhere.
Absolutely.
And the more you invest into this change, I think the better your content will be. And I've been critical of you in the past, and I'm still a little critical of you on your content. Your mic quality could be better. Your gameplay footage and capture, it could be better too. There's a lot of things that can be improved. And I think the more you focus on trying to improve your channel, the more you'll see these things, and the more you'll go to correct them.
In order for me to really correct those things, though, I really need a new computer, which for now I can't really do yet. You know what I mean? So, because I record directly from my console, that's how I record. And
I see. All right. Well, it's definitely, you can see why PCs are very much needed now, right?
Yeah, I'll try to get one as soon as I can, but it's not.
I mean, the best way for you is, if you don't plan on getting a PC to game on, you could just get yourself a $300 or $200 PC that they have right now that will be able to do all of that just fine.
Yeah, I guess.
Or you could get the pocket computer, which is just a USB stick that you attach to a monitor. And
but the thing is, I've been wanting to get into PC gaming again, and I feel like getting a new computer and not being able to game on it, I just want to wait till I could do both.
Yeah, you won't regret it. Having a PC that can do both and more is amazing. I like the fact that I can play a game here and then just close the tab and open up a game, whereas back then I would be playing a game, or back then I would be doing some editing, then I would have to close it, turn off the computer, then I have to go over to my couch, put the disc for the game I wanted to play in the console, and then turn on the console. I like the ease of use. I like how I have everything here for me on a single platform. And it might turn that way. It might be that way for you, or you might just use it for editing. It depends. But there's a lot of games out there that if you do get them, I'm pretty sure, me and Barry would play with you.
Oh yeah, Barry's already offered.
Yeah, I know Barry is in full support for you. He
is, and that's really good, because he has like 100K. Yeah, he's also a good.
He appreciates that you're going out of your way to change, and I appreciate it too. And
even when I was the console king, we were cool. We were always cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you dropped that persona and are looking for something new, because I think for the most part you're pretty good at writing your scripts. I think it's just the mic quality really holds you back on getting better quality. I guess for me, I would recommend you get yourself the Blue Snowball NoobTube. I think it's a mic that will definitely benefit you, and I think you should learn a thing or two about Audacity, and how to better the audio quality. And all of these things, they're completely easy to learn. So if you do plan on improving your channel, well, at least in the audio department, I recommend you get the Blue Snowball.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for having me on. I think
Yeah.
this is probably where we should end it. No.
No problem. Yeah.
All right. Oh, did we end it already?